The Ross program is one of a number of summer math programs, really targeting high school students primarily. So, mainly 9th through 12th graders are the folks who are going to be applying. And we bring about 60 high schoolers together at each location to do a summer of mathematics. So, the basic focus at Ross is really this number theory course. But ultimately, the goal is just to get the participants doing a ton of mathematics together during the summer. Uh, there are some differences, I guess, between Ross and some of the other programs. So I think one big difference is that we have sort of this common course that everyone's sort of does together. We also put the participants in these small groups that we call families. We assign a counselor who's either an undergraduate or graduate student in mathematics, sort of a mentor for this small group of high school students. And the counselor is also grading work during the summer. So there is, I think, a fair bit of writing that people are doing during the summer, which I think is a little bit unusual. I mean, maybe it feels more like a class, but the goal of that writing, is really to get kind of this fast feedback loop going between the participants and the counselor. So it's not like you're being graded on your writing, but you are getting feedback on your writing. And the hope is that over the 6 weeks, people's skill in proofwriting will improve a lot. Certainly, I think I think a lot of people have gone through the program and just gained a lot in terms of being able to read and write mathematics. That's certainly a really important just skill for life. So that's, I think, really kind of the focus of the program. I do think it's a really fun program. I really love spending my summers with the Ross folks. I did summer math programs as a kid. I found them very, very transformative. Really, certainly impacted the trajectory of my life in a positive way. And I really hope that we can provide those kinds of opportunities for just a lot more people. And there's more of these programs, and we're trying to create more of these programs, because there's really, I think, a lot of demand for these summer experiences and not nearly enough spots. So.
Okay, thank you so much. I think now I'm going to share kind of like the student perspective and kind of my experience at Ross these past 2 years. So let me share this like slideshow. If I can just. Okay, can we all see this slideshow?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so like I mentioned, I was a Ross alum. I was a first year at Ross, Ohio 2023, and I went back as a second year student and peer mentor in 2024. So first of all, I wanted to talk about the morning number theory lecture. So a big part of the Ross curriculum is the morning number theory lecture, which is every single weekday in the mornings. So it's about a 1 hour lecture where Dr. Fowler will lecture about some topic in number theory, usually semi-related to the progress in the problem sets that students tend to be around. And a lot of the lectures are a really good place to ask questions and also kind of get some intuitions for kind of the work you're doing in the problem sets. So yeah. And then after lecture, we usually have family time. So like Dr. Fowler mentioned earlier, Ross usually assigns students into small families of 4 to 5 students, 1 to 2 peer mentors who are returning second year students, and a counselor who's typically an undergrad or graduate student. And family time is a really great time to ask any questions that you didn't get to during lecture for some reason, or just talk to your counselor or your peers. At family time, there's usually some talks either by your counselor, your peer mentors, or even by the first year students. So for example, this past year, I gave a talk to my family about combinatorial game theory. And some of the first years in my family also gave talks about topics like chess and ideas in math, pigeonhole principle via some card tricks, the Weierstrass function, and gradient descent. Also, you see in this picture Karthik here is giving a talk on abstract linear algebra. So there's it's a good opportunity to be able to learn a lot of new math, as well as if you have any math topics you are really excited about, it's a good place to be able to share it and also get some great feedback from your peers and your counselor. Okay. And then in the afternoon, besides the morning number theory lecture, there are also advanced lectures throughout the week given by professors or counselors. Some of my favorite advanced lectures that I attended this past summer were Plane Algebraic Curves by Dhruv, which was an intro to algebraic geometry, as well as the knot theory course by Professor Stone. So this is a picture from Plane Algebraic Curves, and this is a picture with some knots from the knot theory lecture. The advanced lectures are typically targeted towards counselors and second year students, but I know a lot of first years also attended some of the advanced lectures, and I myself in my first year went to some of the advanced lectures, and some of them were pretty accessible for first year students as well, like I know the game theory lecture by Shinkai. So that was a really good opportunity to be able to also engage with some and learn some new mathematics. Besides the advanced lectures, the rest and the required morning number theory lecture and family time, most of your time at Ross is very unstructured. So that means that's a lot of time to be working on these great problem sets. So a lot of the time you spend at Ross will be on the number theory problem sets. So what's really nice about the number theory problem sets is you have a lot of time you can spend working on them with other people. So a lot of the time I would find other people who were kind of working on the same problem set as me, or just like with some friends, we would just work on the problem sets together in one of the classrooms or in one of the study rooms back at the dorms. And it was really nice because you could work on these problem sets at your own pace. It didn't feel like you had to rush through them or kind of have to get them done by some certain point. And there wasn't really a feeling of being behind or that you were being judged in a way. But when you finished a problem set, you would turn it into your counselor, and your counselor would take some time to grade your problem set, read over your work, review your proofs. And then for me and my family, my counselor would let me know when they've had finished grading my set, and then we would meet and my counselor would kind of go through my set with me and talk about any specific feedback they had and any places, if there were any issues with my proofs, where I could improve my proofwriting, or if my proof was just wrong and I needed to do a redo. And honestly, my favorite part about Ross was all the redos I got. So at Ross, you'll do the same problem set a lot of times. You'll get a lot of redos. But through that process, you really get to learn to improve and hone your proofwriting and write rigorously, which is very important skill. So I really appreciated most of all from Ross, all of the specific feedback I was able to get and the direct attention I was able to get from my counselor. I think it's very rare to have that opportunity to have someone continuously read over your work and be able to improve in that way. Yeah. Besides the math at Ross, there were also other activities that were really fun and a good opportunity to bond with the other students. For example, this year we had some counselor organized sports activities like tennis, frisbee, or like going on long runs in the afternoon, or in the morning on the weekends. And these activities were a really good opportunity to kind of get outside, get moving around, and also talk to a lot of the other campers. Yeah. And besides that, there were also other activities like um during the talent show, a lot of students and counselors would put on acts such as like hyper chess, musical medleys, or a cappella, which was also really fun outside of that. And on the weekends, our counselors would take their families out on like family outings, which was another chance to be able to bond with your family and kind of get an opportunity to talk with your peers and your counselor. So there's a picture of one of the campers reading a storybook to their family at, I think a bookstore somewhere. And then there's my family when we went to an escape room in Columbus. And then also this picture with um a ton of families together. We organized a picnic and we just took a walk down to the park by the Point, which is one of the classroom, like building with classrooms we have. And we just had a nice picnic together. So that was really nice. Okay. And then also families tend to go to the number garden at least once during their time at Ross. And I think this is kind of like a tradition. But a ton of families will go to the number garden and then take pictures with the numbers. So there's a family there, there's my family on the right, and then there's a ton of families together by this big zero. Lastly, I couldn't talk about Ross without talking about the wonderful community that Ross has. Um, Most of all, I think I really appreciated that all the friends I made through Ross and all the friends I made through our hard grind sessions working on the problem sets and our redos. And I really appreciated all the unique people I was able to meet from like different areas, and I really appreciated the opportunity to be able to kind of bond with different people through our shared passion for math. And I greatly cherish all the friends that I made at Ross and the amazing community Ross has. I still stay in contact with a lot of the people that I've met through Ross, and we continue to kind of stay in contact and check in with each other, and we meet up throughout the year when we get to. And I just think it's really amazing. And the people I met at Ross are some of like, the funniest, most caring, most amazing, and most like interesting people I've ever met. And I really appreciate yeah, the community of friends I was able to make through Ross. So yeah. Okay, I think now we will be moving into the Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. We asked you guys if you had any questions before this, so we have a list of a few questions that were already asked. Wesley, if you want to start with that. But if you
Yep.
have any, feel free to leave them in the chat.
Yep. Okay. First of all, hi, Dr. Fowler. Nice to see you. So we have a list of questions here. Hopefully this will cover the most like general questions, and then we'll move on from there and look at the chat. So first, can you tell us a little bit about, are there any specific advanced mathematics foundations that are needed for this camp, or to answer the application questions?
No, certainly nothing's required. I mean, we do expect people to have like a solid understanding of some high school mathematics content. Real willingness, to think deeply, be creative. But the problems are designed, the application problems in particular, are designed to be accessible to a broad range of people. Have as they say, I guess, low floor, high ceiling. The goal is that people can make progress on the problems without a lot of background, but hopefully there's enough richness there to sort of keep going. And all the application problems have some kind of prompt to invent something, tell me something creative, riff on the problem as it's written, to say something different or come up with some other related conjecture. Because often that's really what we're looking for is people who are going to demonstrate a lot of perseverance and ultimately a lot of creativity in the midst of a lot of perseverance and demonstrate a lot of hard work. So
I see. Interesting. Okay. Oh, for example, do you know if the problem set requires calculus at all? Just as an example.
Oh no, we pretty much never have calculus problems on the application problems. We've sometimes had problems that you could think of in terms of limits. I don't know. One of the problems this year is about Fibonacci numbers. I guess those are a sequence of numbers, and I think sometimes a calculus course talk about sequences of numbers. I mean, it's not like it's not unhelpful to have done a calculus course, but certainly you don't need to know any calculus to do the application problems or to participate in the camp. And we always have people who come to the Ross program without having done anything but the kind of standard curriculum at the usual time. Yeah, I mean, we have people who come who have, they're looking at graduate textbooks in mathematics already in high school, and we have people who come to the program who are doing the standard courses at the time that most people in the United States would take those standard courses. So that's certainly a huge gap of people's backgrounds. But I mean, the goal is to build this kind of community. And that includes people with a great deal of variety in the kind of mathematical backgrounds.
Okay, thank you. And how would you say the problem set compares to different math competitions in terms of difficulty? So like what level would you think it's at?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I guess I've written competitions, so I mean, I can say something, I guess, about writing competition problems versus writing these problems. Writing in the sense of setting the problems, not in the Canadian sense of writing an exam, which in the USA sense of taking the exam. But yeah, I mean, the main thing is that, something like the AMC test or the AMY tests have like an answer, like you're trying to get a multiple choice answer, you're trying to get a number that you write down. Something like these proofwriting contests is sort of closer to what we're trying to do with the application problems. But I mean, ultimately, like the way that we deal with the application problems isn't really the way that folks would deal with a contest. I mean, if this were a contest, we would be scoring the problems as to whether or not they're right or wrong, and we don't even do that. What we're really using the responses that people have to the application, to do is to try to evaluate, ultimately things like perseverance and creativity more than anything else. So I mean, I'm certainly not trying to create a contest by doing the application problems. I'm trying to identify people who will have a great time at a summer program, and those are definitely very different things, for better or worse.
Cool. So it's definitely a different focus there.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any specific requirement for like math competition scores in order to get in addition to the problem set?
No. I mean, there are people who will tell us a lot about competitions that they've done in their application, and there are people who haven't done any competitions. So, and both of those people, are applying to the program and end up being accepted to the program. So.
Okay. And I know that the problem set is not like you get the answer right or wrong. It's kind of like you write out your thought process. But in general, how many problems would you say applicants solve in order to qualify?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I haven't solved the problem. I mean, the last step of the problem is like come up with something new, do something interesting. So there's really no way that you could, I would say, exhaust these problems, because the last problem is always just do something interesting, and you could do lots of interesting things. Certainly, among the people who are going to be accepted, I do expect a response to all 4 problems. I mean, you got to write something down. But I would be worried if an applicant even thinks that they've really solved the problem, because I mean, the point of these things is really just to be some kind of setting for you to explore something. And there's, we give you some of the first few steps, but I mean, what I really want to see is sort of what other questions do people come up with that are related to these questions? Can they make progress on those questions? Is this interesting at all to people? Are there ways of changing the problem that make it easier, that make it harder, make it impossible to solve? Those are interesting things to me.
All right, cool. Thank you. So I have a couple of questions about the application criteria. This one's kind of quick. Can 8th graders apply?
Yeah, actually, I don't think anybody cares what grade anybody's in. And it's actually quite difficult to talk about grades, partly because there are a lot of people from, most of our applicants aren't in the US. So, it's really confusing to try to think about what the education system looks like in other places. Who knows? Some of the people who are applying will be accelerated, overall, in the sense that their grade isn't connected to their age anymore, or they'll be accelerated in math, And then I don't know, what does it matter if somebody's an 8th grader or a 12th grader? Yeah. So, I mean, the only actual rule is that you have to be 13 years old when you apply. And that's because I have to follow the Children's Online Privacy Act in the United States. So you absolutely have to be 13 years old when you apply. But other than that, anybody can apply. We've taken, I mean, we have had 13-year-old participants before, I guess. We've had 19, 20-year-old participants as well before, as first-year students. So, it's really, I mean, people's backgrounds can be very different, and I'm certainly less concerned about age. I mean, I will say that from a community building point of view, I mean, we are, like, most of our applicants are going to be 15, 16 years old. And there are other summer programs that, like, if you are 13 or younger, a program like MathPath that directly is catering to other students who are that age is probably more interesting because, I mean, if you are 13, you probably want to be around other 13-year-olds. So, there are definitely other programs that are more specifically targeting, say, 13-year-olds. But and most of our applicants being 15, 16 means most of our participants end up being 15 or 16. But yeah, there's no specific age, and I don't even really think about the grades that people are in so much. So,
That's pretty cool, and it's good to have like a good mix of ages, even though like to get a good
yeah,
feel, good variety, right?
yeah. I mean, definitely the point of the program is to build like a cohort of people that has some degree of mathematical diversity. And one way to do that is to get some people with different ages in there. The same is true of the staff. I mean, we've got people who are in grad school, people who are undergraduates, and it's helpful to be able to see role models who are at different points in their lives. In terms of participants, I think it's nice that some of the participants are right on the cusp of doing the college applications process. Some of the participants are just starting high school, and those are very different points to be in life.
And you mentioned that most of the people you accept are around 15 to 16 in age.
Yeah. I mean, by far, that's when we're getting most of our applicants. Yeah. So most of the participants
Okay,
end up being
cool.
around that age when they're at the program. So.
Cool. And related to the application again, is how much do you guys emphasize the essay when you're applying?
Yeah. So the way that the application review currently works is that I'm very concerned about the people who are reading the application problems can experience some degree of hidden bias if they know demographic data about the people that they're reviewing. So I would very strongly suggest that the folks who are writing their application problems don't put their names or anything on the application problem. They just write down your thoughts about the problem. Don't write down any other identifying information. The platform will figure out who that it's yours. But just upload a PDF that doesn't have your name on it or anything. And then the reviewers are just shown pairs of applicant work, and they're told to click on the better one. So that avoids issues with the reviewers potentially having different scales internally. We could sometimes get a reviewer that is pretty harsh and some reviewer that's more lenient when we've used other systems before. And this way of forcing all the reviewers to make comparative judgments between the application problems, I think is certainly better. And that lets us identify people who I think will have a good time at the program. The most important thing is to identify people who will have a great summer doing mathematics, and the application problems are a way to do that, because what you're going to be doing at the Ross program is just working on math problems all day long. So, we really want to make sure that that's something that you're going to be excited to do. And once we've identified, a couple hundred people that are, that based on the application problems, it looks like they'll have a great time at the program. Then the reviewers can be, de-anonymized, and we start looking at essays and recommendation letters and stuff at that point. So that if you want to think about it, you can think about the application problems as being a way of eliminating almost all of the applicants, and then the remaining applications get the essays then are pretty much the whole story. Once you've met some kind of cutoff that would suggest that you're going to have a good time at the program.
Cool. That's a very interesting process, and I think it totally makes sense.
It's a process. I mean, it's certainly an imperfect process, and it's a process that we've gone through a lot of different versions of over the years. I mean, I've been involved with camp admissions at this camp and other programs for, I guess a long time, a couple decades, and it's been interesting. I mean, it's an interesting process. It's it's just it's a challenging thing. It comes up again when I wear my other hats in terms of doing, say, admissions to graduate programs are done by MAP departments. So we read folks who are applying to graduate, the applications of people who are applying to graduate school. It happens again with jobs, when people are applying for jobs and we're reading candidates' files. To some extent, similar sorts of things happen with the tenure process when we write letters, in support of tenure for faculty members. So, I mean, it's a process that sort of keeps going throughout the academic process. And I don't know of other people who are currently using this sort of comparative judgment method. I'm happy with it because it seems more principled than other things that we've tried. Because even doing something like trying to normalize, like getting a bunch of scores from people and then trying to normalize them, it's not clear to me that that's entirely without bias. I don't know. And I feel very strongly about being able to remove the demographic data from the applications. I think, we don't necessarily know the kinds of bias that we have. So it's nice to be able to read people's work without knowing their names or really any demographic information about them. And the application platform just makes it impossible for the reviewers to see that. It's all removed. So I think that's a real benefit. We thought about going further. I mean, I'm sort of interested in the fact that we can use large language models to take rec letters and remove identifying information that way as well. Because right now, if you read a rec letter, like the gender of the applicant is very clear in the letter. But if you filter all the rec letters through a local large language model, you can remove the gender data, the names, the school location, things like that from the rec letter as well. So I suspect that we'll try something like that this year as well. I don't know. I mean, it's, I think we're getting better. We do some of this stuff in the other jobs I have. I mean, like when we do qualifying exams for the PhD candidates, those are evaluated anonymously. So they get a number that they write on their paper, but we don't know the names of the PhD candidates when they take their qualifying exams. That seems good, So there's, I think, more opportunity to try to do this in other contexts. I don't know. Some of the large courses, we use things like Gradescope that make it possible for people not to see names when they're evaluating work as well. So I don't know. Hopefully, there'll be more of this. I mean, I really do worry a lot about the application process and how to make it equitable. I don't know, but it is fundamentally like a profoundly imperfect process. I mean, I don't know. It's yeah. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity, I think, for it to go wrong in different ways, and that's challenging, I think, and we just don't have enough spots for everybody, and that's a really depressing thing, which is why we're trying to make more locations. So.
And I mean, it's very clear how dedicated you are to the equity thing, especially with the large language model thing. That's a really cool idea.
Yeah, I think that'll be better. I mean, yeah, I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, some of our peer programs already do some of that. I mean, they some of our peers, you input they don't have rec letters anymore. When they did have rec letters, you input them into a box, and then since it was text, it was easier to do things with pronouns in the text. But we asked for rec letters that are mainly PDFs, and Yeah. So I mean, we have to OCR them and things. I don't know. I wouldn't. I think it's better to ask for PDFs because recommenders are so overburdened, and they've already got PDFs for the most part, or they've got written letters for the most part, and having them fill out a form is a lot of work. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
cool. Another question, is there any emphasis on how many students can be admitted from specific schools or regions? So is that taken into consideration?
I don't know. I mean, certainly if we had a situation where once we de-anonymized the applications, we saw that 20 people were all from the same school. I don't think there's any scenario where we take a dozen people from the same school. We certainly do take multiple people from the same school. Yeah. And there's, I think, schools that we have a pretty positive relationship with that continue to send us great students. So I don't think there's any particular, geographic issues. I mean, I think if somebody's applying and they're in like a really weird geographic location, that can be kind of interesting. One way to think about applications is that, this is sort of a resource that, is very finite because we have a very small number of spots, and we sort of want to think about how we maximize the impact of those spots. And certainly, somebody that seems to have a lot of enthusiasm, but maybe hasn't had as much mathematical experience just by dint of where they're located. That could be, I think that would be seen as a positive among the reviewers. That's a positive thing to think about, and that's a way that the Ross program can hopefully have more marginal impact, because we can hopefully provide a really positive and enriching mathematical summer for somebody who hasn't maybe had so many mathematical experiences. Yeah, so I mean that could be like an interesting thing, but certainly there's like literally no actual numbers that we have or quotas or anything. I mean, ultimately the foundation, I think is dedicated to the mission of sort of bringing mathematics to more people, but those are people all over the world, and I don't think we're looking at particular numbers or anything in any particular geographies that we're trying to get.
Yeah, for sure. And we're almost through the list of the pre-submitted questions, so we're almost there. Another question that I have is, out of the students that are admitted, how many are usually returning students, and what percent are usually new students? And is there any does that factor into the application process?
Yeah. So at our locations, we do have numbers of people that we can support. At the Ohio location, the historically the biggest problem is just the physical number of rooms we had in the dorm that we're using. We're actually changing dorms this year, which I think will be a big improvement, and that'll remove a little bit of that pressure. At both sites, though, ultimately the thing that really limits the number of participants is the number of staff. So, unfortunately, this is a very staff-heavy program to run. Having ratios of like 5-to-1 between participants and staff, those are ratios that we could get away with in a toddler daycare. They're really, I think, considered kind of ridiculous ratios for a program that's catering to high school students. Because I mean, we don't need that many staff in order to run a program for high school students, except for the fact that we're trying to create like this, I hope, very positive mentoring relationship that involves a lot of grading of written work every day. And it would be really impossible to do that kind of relationship with a different ratio. So we're kind of stuck with having 5 participants for each staff member, and we really can't get more staff currently. I mean, we need to grow the number of staff nationally that we can recruit to summer math programs in order to grow the number of spots in summer math programs. So if you're stuck with that kind of ratio, then my goal is generally to get a returning participant assigned to every staff member. it's good to have at least one because you really want to make sure that some of the staff are new to the program, and they really do need somebody who's there just to convey to them what's going on with the program. So we always want to make sure that we've got a returning participant for each staff member. And then it's a question really of how many more people want to come back. So, we're generally thinking about maybe we've got a dozen families. So that's, maybe 5 people each to get 60 people. So about a dozen of those people are going to be returning people. That's a much lower number than some of our peer programs where they have a lot more people that return year after year. And the challenge there is really that if we had even more people who are returning, then we would serve even fewer new first year participants. And I don't know. I mean, it's certainly, I think, I could imagine a world where we took a lot more returning people and tried to figure out a way of getting the ratios to work where that would be okay. Yeah, but usually we're aiming for like 48 new participants and about a dozen returning participants at each location. Having the second location in the United States has allowed us to expand the total number of students that we're serving. It'd be good if we could do another location even, but it's really the staff that ultimately are controlling those numbers. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure the 2 locations help a lot with all of this. It's very convenient.
Yeah. I mean, there's some economies of scale there, I think. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's also just insurance against, the program. I mean, we essentially are guaranteeing that we have some degree of administrative knowledge at multiple locations.
Yeah.
So I think that's good. But I wish we could serve more students. I mean, that's
Of course.
the trouble. Yeah.
And just out of curiosity, what about the returning staff? How does
about half the staff end up returning each year, I would say. I mean, it's a heavy lift for staff too. It's a job that's very much all consuming. I mean, I remember being staff at summer programs I guess I still am staff, but like being like a counselor, mentor. And I mean, it's really a job that's just all consuming in a way that is, it's really different. I mean, I just can't convey, I guess, how hard it is, I think, for the staff in terms of just the amount of work that they're really putting in. I mean, I don't know. It's really hard. I think it's difficult to imagine that people are going to come back, for many, many summers, given the challenge that it really is. Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful thing. I had, truly transformative experiences serving as a mentor, really life-changing. But it is a lot of work, So so I'm pretty happy that we get about half the people who come back. I mean, that creates a lot of continuity every year. But there's a lot of demands on the staff's time. I mean, the staff of the program are pretty much all trying to get into math grad school or finish math grad school. Both of those are difficult things. It's gotten a lot harder to get into graduate school mathematics. So the sort of level of kind of what people are expected to do is a lot higher. A lot of the undergrads are expected to do research programs during the summers in order to generate enough research output to sort of demonstrate that they're prepared to do a PhD in mathematics. So, the staff don't necessarily get to do a lot of research during the 6 weeks at the Ross program. So that makes it hard, I think, for us to get staff, because a lot of the best prepared staff really really want to do summer research programs. At the same time, the staff who are, sort of more senior in their PhD are trying to graduate. The point of graduate school is to graduate. So they're just trying to finish their dissertations. So, that maybe the best part for us is to get staff who say just finished undergrad, they're accepted to graduate school, but they've got that kind of gap summer between undergrad and grad. That can be very helpful. And then people who are very early in their graduate program, if you're a first or second year student, which is when I did, I guess, maybe the most impactful mentoring as a camp staff person for a math program, that's a good time, because you're sort of your expectations, PhD program are sort of still crystallizing. You're kind of figuring out what kind of mathematics you want to do in your graduate program. So that can be a little bit better, but it's hard. I mean, I think it's really hard to just juggle all of that. And at the same time, I think it's an amazing experience for the high school participants because you get to come and see kind of a snapshot of people at a variety of points in their academic careers. You've got folks who are tenured faculty at Arwin institutions and folks at small liberal arts colleges, tenured at small liberal arts colleges. You've got postdocs, who are sort of trying to navigate kind of the between time between grad school and a permanent job. We got some grad students, got full professors, associate professors, just lots of people at different points in their careers. And as a high schooler, I mean, I found it very confusing. Like, what does it even mean to be an academic? Like I was interested in mathematics, but I didn't really know what that kind of career path would look like. And it was really helpful to see people, at those different points in my career. And then I, gained a lot of knowledge about what that would look like and kind of what are my steps along the way.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think it's really, really useful having these mentors and this snapshot, like you said, into the life beyond just math competitions and math camps and everything like that, because I think that's something a lot of people struggle with. I want to move on to some of the questions from the chat since we're running a little low on time. One question is, can coding be used to solve the problem set? I'm assuming the application problems.
Oh yeah, I love programming things. You should program things to explore the problems. I mean, that's how I do things. I mean, that's fun. I like programming. And I've been trying to get at the last couple of summers. I've done some amount of proofgramming at the program as well to try to get some people interested in doing formal proofs with Lean and MathLib. Yeah, and that's really impactful. Definitely encourage people to use computers to explore things. So.
Yeah, it's a great mentality now that we're in all of this AI stuff to use computers.
Yeah, you can ask the machine also. I mean, I learned a lot asking ChatGPT math questions. It's fun. I mean, I definitely encourage people to do that. I mean, you should say, if you're doing that, but we want to know. But it's generally, I mean, it's actually not, it can be a lot of fun. I've definitely learned a lot asking O1 questions. So.
Mm-hmm. And so at the camp, are the problem sets designed to build upon each other each day? So build on the previous day's knowledge, or is it like every problem set is like a different topic?
No, they definitely are building up to stuff. I mean, that's part of what makes it so difficult. So some of our other programs that do use problem sets like this, you just get another problem set every day, and then if you don't finish it, you just move on. So it's kind of weird. I mean, because what happens at Roston is that people are kind of doing lots of different stuff during the summer, kind of depending on what problem sets they're working on. But ultimately, they're all telling kind of a story, and there's sort of exciting things along the way. I mean, you get to see some unique factorization stuff. Quadratic reciprocity is definitely an exciting thing that appears on some of the later sets. There's some geometry of number stuff that we usually do at the end of the program. So I think those are all kind of nice things to see, but they definitely build up to stuff over the summer.
Yeah. Cool. Sounds exciting.
It's amazing.
And is there any difference between what's taught at the two campuses, or like any notable differences at the two campuses?
Well, yeah, I mean, you get to see Tim all at Rose-Hulman. Tim's just a wonderful human being. I really miss Tim a lot. That's the worst thing about having the two locations. I don't get to see Tim. So yeah, I'm depressed about that. I really like Tim a lot. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely differences between the programs. I mean, just by virtue of kind of who's there at these different locations. So, I mean, I guess like very practically, in Ohio, there's a lot of people who are in Ohio who are going to be talking to you. And in Indiana, there's people who are in Indiana who are going to talk to you. And those are different people at different places. So, I mean, there's like a ton of faculty at Rose-Hulman are involved with Ross, Indiana, and they've got their own stuff going on, their own perspective on things. And then there's some faculty from Ohio State and other places around here that'll be coming to the Ohio site. And there's certainly, the different people who are going to say different things. So, the advanced courses will be very different. We aim for the problem sets to be the same. And this is the first year that we're going to run the programs at the same time, which I hope will have some other economies of scale. I've resisted doing that mainly because of concerns about the challenge of arrivals and departures are often very difficult times, and it's helpful to have some other people to support that. But after having departures scheduled on the CrowdStrike outage day last summer, what could possibly be worse? So I think we're ready for anything that's going to come, and it'll be good to kind of line up the two programs. So.
Cool. And let's see, what else do we have here? So another thing is, let's see, lots of this we covered. I guess with the recent AMC leaks, is Ross going to be putting less emphasis on the AMC scores, or will it just be the same?
I mean, truthfully, we've never put very much emphasis on the AMC scores. So
I see.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a math contest. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, it gives us some number, but I mean, it's difficult to know because you know, there really are applicants who just don't participate in contests at all. So I mean, it's not like we can really use those scores given that. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. And for international applicants, is there anything different about the application process? Is there, like, do you require a score on language exams?
Yeah, we do ask all, regardless of nationality. I mean, just anybody whose native language is in English should include evidence of English proficiency. So that's some kind of English proficiency exam score. We have no actual cutoffs for those, but definitely, you know, definitely are asking anybody whose native language is in English to do that. So.
I see. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but just a quick note. So the two locations, they both have the core number theory lecture every morning, right?
Yeah, so Tim is probably going to do that. I mean, sometimes someone else is. I mean, I don't always do the number theory lectures either. This summer, I guess I'm scheduled to do that. I think in 2026, I've lined up someone else to do it, but it just depends on kind of what other things are happening. You know, I think both Tim and I are also interested in running other courses. So at some point recently, Tim designed an analysis course and wanted to run that. And then it's just hard to do that and also the number theory lectures. So, but yeah, we still do number theory lectures. I mean, I gotta say too. I mean, you know, lectures are very entertaining. I love lectures. I love watching videos on YouTube. I just can't get enough YouTube. But ultimately, you know, the lecture, you know, it's a lecture. So I mean, the real learning is all happening during the family time and the small group discussions, and when you're actually writing up the solutions on the problem set. So I'm pretty bearish on lectures. You know, I don't know. Tim and I used to do the lecture together once, and that was wonderful. I feel like I really got to know Tim, and that was so fantastic. But you know, so it's like you can have like a community time during the lecture, which is good, and people can participate, and that's really fun. You know, but definitely interested in trying to figure out ways of making the lecture more engaging. You know, lecture is real important. I mean, it's just really important to have a morning gathering time because there's announcements and you know, you do want to create some kind of core mathematical community. Like it's helpful to have definitions that are revealed to everyone. You know, it's nice if there's some ability to have like a common questions that can go across all of the small groups so that there's some opportunity for small groups to interact with each other. But I mean, really the entirety of sort of what happens at these programs just boils down to this family group that you're in. I mean, it's crazy how much that really matters. I mean, when I think about my time as a mentor and just like the specific handful of students that I was really engaged with, and you know, that was a very positive experience. But I'm sure other people had very different experiences just because they were with a different mentor, you know.
Yeah. This small time definitely feels like it could be a lot more intimate, you know. than the lectures, which I'm sure are
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah, I really like the small group format.
Yeah.
This is something we've only done in the last 5 years or so, and I think it's really positive. I don't know. I
Yeah,
like
cool.
I like that. Yeah.
And we're running out of time here, but approximately how many like ninth graders would you say you have every summer? I know you mentioned most of them are 15 to 16, a little younger than that. How
Yeah,
many would you-
I don't actually know. So none of our buttons in our evaluation system have grade. So I really don't actually know. I really don't have a good way of saying that because I never look
I
at
see.
those numbers. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
in terms of like 14-year-olds, a few. We have a few 14-year-olds every year, but not many. I mean,
Okay,
it's pretty unusual, I would
that
say.
makes sense.
I mean, the kind of party line, is that, if you're going to have a great time at this program at 14, be even better when you're 15. There's no particular rush. Um, I don't know, it depends again, like on what people's like actual like academic plans are. I mean, some people are trying to finish high school quickly, and I'm sure then it makes me, try to do this during the last summer I'm going to before I leave, that kind of thing. And then it would probably make more sense to try to do it when you're 14. Yeah, I think it just really depends on what else you're planning on doing, what other opportunities you have. I don't know, but generally not very many 14-year-olds.
I see. That makes sense. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And can if a student has a conflict, like if their school doesn't end before the camp starts or they have something else going on, are they allowed to arrive a few days late to the camp?
So this has been an issue for many years, certainly the last 10 years. But the policy now is to say that people can come 2 days late. Probably if they're coming 2 days late, they're coming to Ohio because it's real hard to get from Indiana's airport. But we really don't want people to come later than that. I mean, it becomes it's really an issue of trying to integrate socially into the program. I mean, I wouldn't even recommend coming 2 days late, truthfully.
Mhm.
I think it's just so hard to be the last person to show up. You're missing out on a ton of social connections that happen very quickly at the beginning of the program. It's really hard. Yeah. We can write letters to people's schools to try to convince them to let them go. Really depends on your school, So the biggest problem is the state of New York and the Regents exams. That's always a problem. We are also much earlier than most of the other summer programs, I would say. A lot of the other summer programs are in states where things get out a lot later. I mean, I'll be done teaching here mid-April, basically. And I'm going to run some conferences or something in May. But if I don't get the camp stuff done by the end of July, then I'm not. I mean, I've got other conferences scheduled to go to in August, so it would be difficult for me to run the program much later. I mean, and of course, school starts here, mid-August basically. So I've got to get everything in right then. So we're there because the schedule here is like that. But hopefully that works for some people for whom this is a good schedule, but other people it's just a terrible schedule. And then I try to go to another program is what I'd say. But yeah, I mean, we just can't find a 6-week period that's good for everybody. So,
Yeah, it's tough.
yeah,
And
it's just crazy, really, how different the schedules are.
And in the end, I guess maybe it's worth missing a few days of school,
Oh yeah, school. Skip school. I mean, I missed out half of high school. You can skip a lot of high school. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, pick what things you're gonna skip. But boy, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess people have final exams. I mean, that's the real problem. Sometimes you can take them early. Take them
Mhm.
remotely. Take them not at all. It depends on how the courses are structured.
I see. And final question here. Is there any GPA requirement?
Oh no, that's impossible to evaluate people's GPAs. I mean, schools are so different in terms of what they're doing. I mean, it's shocking how different people's high school experiences are, honestly. So yeah, I don't know how I could evaluate them. We do ask people for the transcripts, but that's mainly to try to understand kind of what their mathematical background is, you know. And I mean, like if you've got a transcript that's got really bad grades in non-mathematical, you know, like who cares? I mean, I don't care. So, you know,
Oh, you
whoops,
just
sorry,
muted
there you go.
yourself.
It's helpful to know the names of the courses that you've taken, because then that can kind of inform, you know, when we're looking at the application problem work, like that can sometimes explain people's background there. Certainly, if you've done a lot of other, you know, outside mathematical stuff, I mean, I'm interested in knowing about that as well. You know, you may not have transcripts for that, but it can be helpful to just understand kind of, you know, what is your background. You know, that helps us understand better kind of this is going to be a great experience for you or not. So.
And I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, Dr. Fowler. It was great talking to you, and thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no,
Emma.
it's really, thank you for having me. I hope you all apply. It's such a wonderful thing. I mean, I can't convey how just completely life-changing these summer programs were for me. So really
sure.
impacted my experiences. So.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that as well. Thank you so much for coming, guys.
Yeah.
And you should definitely apply to Ross.